Welcome, Bronco Nation, to my 3 keys to the game versus UCF. My first 3 keys to the game video of the 2021 season. I am so excited. The season is only 1 week away. I can't believe those words just exited my mouth. By the time most of you guys watch this video, it'll be 6 days away. But as of right now, my shooting 7 days away. I cannot wait for kickoff. Red alert, the season is right around the corner. Of course, football itself, general football, Mountain West football in particular, kicks off on Saturday. So 2 days away until college football is back. I cannot wait. Let's get into the video here. I love these keys to the game videos because it gives a chance to give a brief overview of the things that the Boise State needs to go do to win the games here. And the first matchup is against UCF. So Boise State at UCF, September 2nd, Thursday, 5 p.m. Mountain Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So a favorable time slot. Should have a lot of eyes on them, a chance to go out and impress, especially compared to the rest of the games on Thursday. The Boise State versus UCF game is definitely the best game of the day. The Vegas line is a 5.5 for UCF, so they're projecting UCF to win the game by 5.5 points, or that's the spread. Obviously, they won't score half a point. And then ESPN is giving them a 76% chance of winning. So Boise State coming into this one as underdogs, a position that they are not used to being in against other Group of 5 teams. In fact, and this is a little stat that comes from Bronco Nation Updates member Josiah Bridgewater, who pointed it out on the page. I went and fact-checked it. He's absolutely right. But the last time that Boise State actually lost a non-conference Group of 5 matchup, so not interconference, but the last time they lost a non-conference Group of 5 matchup was 1999 versus then WAC team Hawaii. Boise State was in the Big West at the time. That was the last time that Boise State lost a non-conference matchup against a Group of 5 team. Now, the American Athletic Conference likes to bill it themselves as the Power 6, and UCF has definitely been a top team in the nation over the last few years. Definitely Boise State's main rival to that Group of 5 bid to the New Year's Six, but the American Athletic Conference, I've talked about it before, they're definitely still a Group of 5 conference, and officially, of course, they're a Group of 5 conference. So this is a huge game. It's a big opener for both teams, and it will be interesting. Boise State has a lot riding on this, not just as far as this season, but heritage-wise, to go out there. Boise State's always dominated in the Group of 5, and they've done well against Power 5. A lot is riding on Boise State's prestige here, a lot on their name sake to go out and win this game. The second interesting stat here is this is only the second time that Boise State has played a team from Florida. Of course, the previous time, 2019, Boise State went and beat Florida State. It was an awesome game. Boise State looked really good in that game. They actually looked more conditioned than the Florida State players. Don't expect that to happen this time. I expect Boise State to be prepared, but UCF is a different beast, definitely a much better team than either that 2019 Florida State team or Florida State period of the last few years. They've just been horrible ever since Jameis Winston left. So this is a UCF team that's going to be very, very challenging. Another thing that makes this interesting, as I mentioned before, is that UCF has kind of been that, like, almost a non-conference rival for Boise State. It's the first time, at least in the FBS era, that these two teams are meeting up. I should have gone on Wikipedia and seen if there's any previous matchups between these two. I apologize for that. I'll put it in the description of the video. That's an oversight on my part. But as far as the FBS era goes, this is the first time that these two teams have met up, yet there's really been kind of a building rivalry between these two teams. Former UCF head coach Scott Frost said that UCF was going to be this decade's Boise State, which definitely rubbed a lot of Boise State fans the wrong way. He meant it out of respect. He was saying that he loved what Boise State had done and he wanted UCF to rise to that. But I think a lot of Boise State fans took it kind of saying that he was replacing Boise State. A lot of Boise State fans took it that way, and I think a lot of UCF fans kind of jumped on that bandwagon. UCF has stirred a lot of feathers college football-wise, and I think it's upset a couple Boise State fans as well. Just kind of the arrogance of it all by claiming national championships when Boise State themselves went undefeated in 2009 and 2006 and didn't go all about claiming national championships. So I think that this is a team that, and another point is that since UCF has been consistently, Cincinnati, of course, has been rising up in the American Athletic Conference ranks to be one of the top teams in that conference. But UCF has consistently been that main challenger to Boise State, that main stepping stone to getting to that New Year's Six Bowl. And so I, for one, have rooted against UCF in almost every single game they've played over the last few seasons. So it's definitely been kind of a building rivalry there, even though this is the first time these two teams are meeting. I'm so excited, and I can't wait to get into it. Let's get into reviewing these 3 keys to the game. I'm already 4 minutes in, so I apologize for that. But there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot riding on this game, so it's interesting to look at the stakes that are at hand for this great matchup. Okay, so the first key of the game here is going to be offensive line. Now, this might seem like an obvious one, but it's really been Boise State's main struggle over the last few seasons. When you think about those Boise State teams that were so dominant, the Boise State teams that were able to go out and beat Oklahoma, or even beyond that, the teams that were able to rise into the top 5 in the rankings in the nation, teams that were able to go out and win that Fiesta Bowl against TCU, against under Kellen Moore, of course, great players on those teams overall. But the things that those teams really had in common was incredible offensive line play. Boise State was able to dominate against all opponents, Group of 5 and Power 5, was able to dominate, be one of the top teams in the nation because of their offensive line play. Now the offensive line has really gone downhill. 2012, I would say, was probably the last year of the great Boise State offensive lines. The 2014 team that went and won that Fiesta Bowl, the second half, they returned 5 starters that season, and the second half of the year was definitely a good year. But the first half, the offensive line was really, really bad. They had to switch a lot of players around to see what fit, and they finally found what worked. But over the last few seasons here, Boise State has really given up a lot of sacks. And so going back to what I was talking about, this 2006-2009 team. So the 2006 team only gave up 20 sacks in 13 games. The 2008 through 2011 teams, the teams that had the Kellen Moore era there, 2008 only gave up 13 sacks. 2009 only 5 sacks. The Fiesta Bowl winning team only gave up 5 sacks. The 2010 team only 9 sacks, and the 2011 team only 8 sacks. Compare that to the last few years here. In 2015, Boise State gave up 31 sacks. In 19, which was an improvement, but then 17, 29 sacks, 18, 32 sacks, and in 2019, 27 sacks, and Bachmeier got hit a lot more times than he actually got sacked. He was able to get the ball out. Now, these sacks can't be put all on the offensive line. Bachmeier has had an issue of getting, and even before him, Brett Rippon as well, they've had an issue of holding on to the ball a little bit too long, especially Bachmeier, of holding on to the ball a little bit too long and getting hit and taking sacks that they shouldn't. That was a great thing about Kellen Moore, is he was so smart with the ball. But the offensive line has been incredibly porous. In fact, Bachmeier has gotten used to getting hit so often that when he doesn't get hit, he almost looks a little uncomfortable. When he actually has time in the pocket, he doesn't always look as good as he does when he's scrambling. So, and the 2020 team, with only 7 games played, gave up 15 sacks. So only 7 games, but 15 sacks. That's more than 2 sacks a game. It's really been a consistent struggle for Boise State. Now, Boise State does have 4 out of 5 starters back, which again hasn't mattered so much in the past. Like I said, that 2014 team had 5 starters back and was horrible on offensive line the first 5-6 games. So it might take them some time to meld, but it is always great to get starters back with experience. Boise State brought in a couple of great offensive linemen in their recruiting class. Top of that, as far as the incoming freshman, would be Mason Randolph. I'm really excited to see what he can do. And then Boise State also brought in, I don't have their names, I didn't write them down, I apologize, but Boise State did bring in a couple of transfers as well, or one transfer, I think. But anyhow, they brought in some new blood on that line. I think that will help revitalize and bring in some experience on there, at least from the transfer perspective, that might improve that. And then they also have a new offensive line coach here in Tim Keene, coming over from UC Davis. Now, he's had some great success for himself over the last 3 seasons, not counting 2020 because they canceled their season, but 2019 through 17, his offensive line only gave up 48 sacks. Compare that to Boise State's offensive line of the last 3 years, which gave up 74 sacks. So 48, not an incredible number, but definitely an improvement. And I think here with the new focus, the new mentality, the Andy Avalos era, who was part of those teams that really kind of established Boise State as a front runner in their conference and a team to beat. So Andy Avalos, a great hard-nosed coach who's going to come in here, I think, and really help establish Boise State as being, again, one of those top teams in the Group of 5, that era of dominance. But it's all going to start, the defense needs work. And I've talked about that in other videos, but it really all starts with the offensive line. That's where a team gets its identity, if it can win the battle in the trenches. And coming up against a UCF team that is a good team with a good offense, it's going to be a very tough challenge. So I think that whether Boise State wins or loses this game, and I'll give a score prediction at the end of this video, whether Boise State wins or loses this game, I think is going to come down to how their offensive line plays. How can they protect Hank Bachmeier? How can they block in the run game, which has also suffered, especially when it wasn't Holani last season when he went out, and we had a running back in there in Van Buren who, while a great kid as far as the energy that he brings, just didn't have the breakaway, the tackle breaking or second level ability that Holani did. Like I've said before, he definitely reminded me more of a Jack Fields kind of player. So when Holani was out, that running game suffered because he was getting hit. Van Buren was getting hit in the backfield and wasn't barely being able to get back to the line of scrimmage. So this has been an issue. If Boise State can fix that porous offensive line, can really establish themselves, blue collar mentality begins in the trenches, in those. The blue-collar mentality begins in those positions that don't get a lot of fame, notoriety, and the offensive line definitely fits that image there. So hopefully, number one, key to the game here, increased offensive line play. Second key to the game is capitalize in the red zone. Now, Boise State last season was able to fix their red zone woes. They were able to find something that worked. Bachmeier and Sears both looked much better in the red zone. Bachmeier especially looked much better in the end zone than he has in the past. Since 2019 through 2017, Boise State has really struggled in the red zone. In 2019, they only made 68.42% of their drives ended in touchdowns once they got into the red zone. In 2018, only 62%, and in 2017, 57.14%. So last season, 81.82%, a significant improvement. 18 out of their 22 red zone drives resulted in touchdowns. Much better overall performance and improvement by Boise State there. Hopefully that continues into this season, and it's especially going to count against UCF. Now, in 2019, the last time Boise State played a Florida team, Sachs, the transfer kicker who came on and was amazing, was able to keep Boise State in the game against Florida State with going 5 of 5 in the kicks there, with a bunch of first half kicks that kept Boise State in the hunt. And then the second half revival allowed Boise State to take that game. And Dalmas is a great kicker, as good as Sachs, and I think he's going to be one of the best kickers that Boise State ever has at the end of his career. Great from distance as well, very accurate. So if Boise State is not able to convert in the red zone or beyond, Dalmas is going to be able to get them points. But a team like UCF is not going to be as forgiving as Florida State was. If Boise State wants to win this game, if Boise State wants to win games this season, they need to be converting the red zone, bring that magic from last season. There was a lot last season that needs to be done differently. I think we can all agree with that. Defense, especially evidenced by the BYU game and even the San Jose State team game. Offense across the board, there were a lot of issues. But one thing, like I said, that Boise State did much better compared to previous seasons was that they capitalized in the red zone. Now, Hank Bachmeier has taken the starting position, as deservedly so. Both quarterbacks, Jack Sears and Hank Bachmeier, are outstanding quarterbacks, and I would be comfortable with either of them starting. But I do think that Hank Bachmeier brings that extra little magic or spark that you really want to see out of a quarterback that's going to make not just your team great, but that's going to bring them the notoriety needed to help them overcome the biases in the polls and help them get into the national framework and move up in the rankings. So I definitely like Hank Bachmeier better for that. But Jack Sears is an incredibly accurate quarterback. He's a quarterback who's much more of a pro-style quarterback who can use his legs as well. And I like him as a red zone threat. I like him as a package deal across the board. I hope that Boise State, like I said in my previous videos, if Hank Bachmeier got the start, I expected to see Jack Sears throughout the year in a variety of different package sets, which I think he fits much better into that versus using Bachmeier in a package set. So I think Boise State made the right call because now they're going to be able to get to use two quarterbacks versus if they go with Jack Sears, Bachmeier becomes a bench player, and I just don't see a set where he's going to be able to come in and make an impact. So I definitely think Boise State made the right call. I think that we're going to see a not quite a Brett Rippon and Montel Cozart kind of deal, but I do think that we're going to see a set where Jack Sears is going to come in a little bit of a change of place and going to be able to come in and be very effective, especially in the red zone where his accuracy. We all remember that Air Force game where he played and was just so incredibly accurate. That accuracy that he brings, as well as that ability to run, which is so important in the red zone to keep teams guessing. I think he's going to be Boise State's ticket to a golden red zone season this year. So I hope that Boise State first off, continues the trend that they started last season with Bachmeier much improved in the red zone. And then I hope that they are able to mix in Sears in a way that makes Boise State effective. I like Bachmeier between their Boise State's own end zone and the 20, and use Sears from then on out to finish drives in a outstanding fashion here. So that's our first two keys of the game there: increase offensive line ability, and then capitalize in the red zone. And then the third key of the game here, real quick, is that the second stringers really need to step up. This is going to be a tough matchup. It's going to be hot. I live in Florida. I know how it is. It's hot. It's humid. It's horrible. It is a great state, but it is very, very hot, and Boise State's going to feel it. They did a great job of conditioning for that Florida State game. They definitely did a great job of conditioning for that, but I think that Boise State's really going to feel the heat, especially with the likelihood of rain throughout the day on that Thursday. It's going to be very, very humid when the rain lets up. So Boise State, I think, is going to have to dip into their second string, maybe even their third string in some positions. And last year, the dip into the second string forced by injuries, COVID, or just regular gameplay really hurt Boise State. There was a significant drop-off between Helani and Van Buren. There was a significant drop-off between what became the two main wide receivers after Octavius Evans went out, Shakir and Thomas. And there was a massive drop-off between the first-string defense and the second-string defense. I mean, the first-string defense had their own issues, but when they had to go to the second-string defense, it was a nightmare. We saw that especially in that BYU game. Was one of the reasons Boise State lost that game, is that the first-string defense was able to play okay in the first half, but when Boise State wasn't able to put any drives together and were going 3 and out on a consistent basis, it forced Boise State to dip into their second-string players, and those guys, the first-stringers as well, but those guys definitely contributed to Boise State getting torched which happened in that second half. So Boise State really needs to make sure that their second string are as good as their first string. Like I said, the great Boise State teams of the past, that's been another thing that's defined them. In addition to their offensive line play, it's been that the second guy up is as good as the first guy up. I mean, there were times when Boise State had running back, Boise State at one point had a running back room that had Ian Johnson, Doug Martin, Jeremy Avery, and I believe DJ Harper on the same team. I mean, that's the kind of depth that you talk about making Boise State not just a group of 5 school, but equivalent to a dynasty team, a dynasty Power 5 program, is having that depth. And it's been something that Boise State has struggled with over the last couple of seasons. They've had a couple of great quarterbacks step up. They've had some good running backs step up, but they really need those guys, not just in offense, but especially in defense, to step up this season in the second string category. So we'll have to see what happens there. I trust the first string. I think is going to look pretty good, especially offensive wise. I think Boise State is in pretty good hands here, and that Andy Avalos is going to have his defense ready, especially at the first string level. But with a real test of Boise State to say, okay, are they just a top tier group of 5 team, or are they even better, or are they more than that? Is this a team that can go out and beat Oklahoma State? Is this a team that can go out and compete for New Year's Six? Is this a team that can force a debate in the committee? That question is going to be answered by how good the second string players are. So that's going to be real key to this game, especially considering the climate, the environment that Boise State's having to play in here in Florida, and the caliber of opponent that's going to be beating up a lot of players. Not actually beating up. They're not the dirty team, but it's going to be a hard-fought matchup, and the second string is going to have to be ready. Okay, so just summarizing here before I give my score prediction. Offensive line is the first key. The second key is capitalize in the red zone, and the third key is second stringers need to step up. Okay, so I'm going to give my my prediction here for the score. It's first game is always the toughest game to predict as score-wise, because you haven't seen either team. You don't know what they're going to put up. So it's a shot in the dark based on a lot of different things, but it's the toughest to predict. And this season, period, is the toughest to predict, because last year, the way that COVID worked out was so weird and messed up so many things, it's hard to tell. I've said this before in my other videos, but it's hard to tell what a team was presenting. Was that truly what that team was worth or able to achieve last season, or did COVID mess them up? So I'm going to throw out a number here. I think that we're going to be below the 5.5 average. I think that this is going to be a 4-point score game. That's my line that I'm giving it. I do think and you can watch. I'll put the links in the description here for my in-depth preview of UCF this season and my preview of Boise State overall. I have a series that I went through, but I do think that Boise State is the better team in this matchup. Both coming in with brand new head coaches, because Gus Malzahn, the former Auburn coach, which Brian Harsin replaced over at UCF, and Andy Avalos over at Boise State. But I think Boise State is going to be the slightly better team here. I love Dylan Gabriel. I think he's a great quarterback, but I really like the players at Boise State returns across the board here with Hank Bachmeier, George Kalani, especially Khalil Shakir here. 3 outstanding players who are going to just be a trio that's going to be hard to compete with. It's going to be a really, really close matchup, but like I said, Boise State has a history of beating Group of 5 teams. They have a history of beating Power 5 teams, but they especially have a history of beating Group of 5 teams. They're a team that's motivated. They're a team that's hungry. Andy Avalos is a great coach that I think is going to come out and prove his mettle in this game with a lot of motivation, a lot riding on this one. So I do see Boise State coming in here with a bit of an upset at least against odds, and winning this game. My prediction is a pretty high-scoring affair, 38-34. I think Boise State's defense is going to be tested, tried, and even knocked down a little bit, but that their defense is ultimately going to be just good enough to get the stop in this and potentially get better throughout the season. And I think that the offense, which I thought was great, I think that we're going to see. I thought it was good last year when the starters were in the game prior to the injuries and COVID issue, especially those first couple games, Utah State and Air Force. I think that this Boise State offense is going to be much more similar to the 2019 offense, especially the one that went on that crazy 7-game winning streak with all the starters in there. So I think that this is going to be Boise State offense that's going to be very tough to handle, and a defense that's going to be just good enough to get the win in this with a 38-34 victory, and especially if Boise State can fulfill these 3 keys to the game. All right, thank you so much. This is a little bit longer than I like to have my 3 keys to the game videos. I like to keep them between 15 and 20 minutes, preferably on the 15-minute side. But first game of the season, very excited for this matchup. It was a lot to talk about, especially with what's right on the line, so I went just a little bit long on that one. Hope you can forgive me for that. If you're not a fan, if you're not a member of Bronco Nation Updates and you're a Boise State fan, make sure to join Bronco Nation Updates on Facebook, the largest Boise State group with over 8,600 members. And if you aren't already a subscriber, make sure you like and subscribe. There's going to be tons of great Boise State content. If you're not a Boise State fan and you're just watching this because you're bored and want to see something on YouTube, I do other videos besides Boise State, so make sure you like and subscribe. I have a whole series previewing the college football season in general, and I'm going to have at least one weekly non-Boise State video where I talk about my top 10 games of the season and give my predictions against the Vegas odds and the ESPN odds there. All right, thank you so much for watching this video. It's going to be a crazy, awesome season. If you're going to that UCF game, I am too. I'll see you there. Make sure you wear white, and as always, go Big Blue.